Lansdowne Station is a small village in the backwoods of Nova Scotia. Here you can hear the sound of trees more than cars, dense forests, dirt roads, and few houses scattered around. The locals know each other by name, but what matters most is the nature that is always close by. On one such quiet street, Garlock Road, lived the Sullivan Martell family. The mother, Malia Brooks Murray, her common-law husband Daniel Martell, their shared 16-month-old daughter, and Malia's two older children from a previous relationship, 6-year-old Lilly and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan. They have resided here for the past 2 years. Lilly, like many girls her age, loved pink. Her clothes often included pink sweaters and boots. Jack, the younger brother, wore diapers, loved blue rubber boots with dinosaurs on them, and was interested in insects. Their biological father was not involved in the children's lives. He was reportedly under house arrest. Please continue to leave your cities in the comments. It's very inspiring to me. Thank you for your incredible support of my channel. Make sure to subscribe and consider becoming a channel sponsor to help continue raising awareness about these important issues. Please share this video with your friends. The little angels deserve to be remembered. Let's get back to the case. Malia and Danielle took primary care of the children. The morning of Friday, May 2nd, 2025, began like many others in the rural quietude of Lansdowne Station. However, what started as an ordinary day would soon unravel into a perplexing mystery that would grip the region and beyond. By mid-morning, the unthinkable would be reported. Lilly and Jack Sullivan were missing. The initial jarring report that reached authorities painted a picture of innocence gone astray. Two young children, last seen playing at home, believed to have simply put on their rain boots and wandered out of their backsliding door, disappearing into the vast, unforgiving wilderness that bordered their yard. According to the early accounts provided by their stepfather, Daniel Martell, the children had been in another room playing around 8:30 a.m., while he and Malia were in their bedroom with their toddler, feeding her. He recalled hearing Jack in the kitchen and noted that Lilly had poked her head into their bedroom once or twice. Then, a period of silence, estimated at about 20 minutes, prompted Daniel to investigate. He found the kitchen empty, the children nowhere inside the house. The only clue, he would later state, was the absence of their rubber rain boots. He assumed they had slipped out quietly. This initial belief that Lilly and Jack had innocently wandered off set the stage for an urgent, sprawling search. But as the hours turned into days, the seemingly simple narrative of two lost children would become clouded by conflicting accounts, troubling inconsistencies, and a deepening sense of unease, leaving a tight-knit community and a wider audience asking, what truly happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan in the silent, watchful woods of Nova Scotia? The answer, it seemed, was as elusive as the children themselves. The initial shock of Lilly and Jack's disappearance soon gave way to a confusing tapestry of slightly, yet significantly different recollections from their mother, Malia Brooks Murray, and stepfather, Daniel Martell. As investigators began piecing together the timeline of that Friday morning, May the 2nd, these variations became critical points of scrutiny. Daniel's account, as first reported, placed him and Malia in their bedroom around 8:30 a.m., attending to their 16-month-old daughter. He claimed to have heard Jack in the kitchen and seen Lilly briefly. It was the subsequent 20-minute silence that alerted him to their absence. However, another version emerged, closer to what Malia would later tell the media. In this telling, both parents were still in the main bedroom, not fully awake, but aware of the children playing in another room. Malia described herself as drifting in and out of sleep. When she fully awoke to silence, the alarm bells sounded. Notably, both parents consistently stated they had not actually seen Jack that morning, only heard him. The description of his clothing, a brown shirt and pants with a pull-up diaper, was based on what he wore the previous night. This discrepancy over whether the parents were actively tending to their baby or waking up introduced an element of ambiguity. Daniel also later added a detail. He claimed he had asked Lilly and Jack to be quiet several times that morning so the baby could continue sleeping. This raised a new question. Was the baby eating, as initially suggested, or sleeping? For a 16-month-old, these activities might not be mutually exclusive, but the shifting emphasis was noted. The most puzzling detail was the state of the backsliding door. Daniel observed that it was closed when he realized the children were gone. This, he pointed out, was unusual. Normally, he said, Lilly and Jack would leave the door wide open after going in or out, and he would often have to remind them to close it. The fact that it was found closed, presumably after they had exited, seemed odd. Alongside this, their rubber rain boots were missing, pink ones for Lilly, blue dinosaur-themed ones for Jack, leading to the assumption they'd put them on before venturing outside. Daniel also believed Lilly had taken her white, strawberry-patterned backpack. Adding another layer of confusion was the account from the children's biological paternal grandmother, Belinda Gray. She stated that Jack and Lilly were last seen on Thursday night when put to bed, then heard playing on Friday morning around 8:30 a.m., after which their mother and stepfather, who were in another room, fell back asleep. Upon waking to silence, they discovered the children missing and called 911 around 9:40 a.m. However, a police dispatch call reportedly mentioned that Jack and Lilly went missing around 8 a.m., not closer to the 9:40 a.m. time Daniel had cited for the 911 call. This crucial 20 minutes of silence before discovery, as Daniel termed it, became a focal point. If the children had been unheard for only that long, how far could they have realistically gone, especially if they had to navigate a fence or unfamiliar terrain? The discrepancies in when they were last heard, what the parents were doing, and the precise timing of the 911 call created a murky foundation for an investigation into two young lives that had seemingly vanished into thin air. These conflicting chronicles of a quiet morning would soon fuel speculation and complicate the desperate search unfolding outside their Garlock Road home. Once Daniel Martell realized Lilly and Jack were not in the house, he claimed his first instinct was to jump in his vehicle and begin scouring the nearby dirt roads and culverts, a frantic, independent search for the missing children. Meanwhile, back at the Garlock Road home, Malia Brooks Murray contacted 911, officially setting in motion a large-scale emergency response. By the time Daniel returned, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, were already on scene. The authorities launched their search almost immediately. The operation quickly escalated, drawing in helicopters, drones, and an estimated 160 emergency service personnel. Volunteer ground search and rescue teams, the Civil Air Search and Rescue Association, the Nova Scotia Guard, the Salvation Army, and various specialized RCMP units, including police dogs and drone operators, converged on the rural area. Daniel recounted that upon his return, police initially told him he wasn't allowed back into the woods to continue searching. However, he said a man in military gear subsequently permitted him to re-enter, so he jumped the fence and resumed his personal efforts, describing himself as running through the woods, screaming their name until I felt her, and wading through waist-deep water, often ahead of the official search assets. Despite the immediate and comprehensive nature of the search, the terrain itself presented a formidable challenge. The area surrounding the family home was described as not just wooded, but densely forested and dangerous, making movement difficult even for trained professionals. Compounding these difficulties, the weather in the region had been rainy and nasty, rendering the ground wet, slippery, and conditions generally unfavorable for both the searchers and, ominously, for anyone lost within it. One of the critical early decisions made by law enforcement was regarding the type of alert issued. While a vulnerable missing persons alert went out to the public on Saturday, May 3rd, an Amber Alert was not activated. Police stated this was because they did not believe at that stage that the children had been abducted. Their working theory was that Lilly and Jack had simply wandered away on their own and become lost. This distinction was significant. An Amber Alert, typically reserved for suspected abductions of children under 18 where sufficient descriptive information is available, carries a wider, more urgent reach. Malia and Daniel, however, were vocal in their disagreement with this assessment, pushing for an Amber Alert. They feared abduction was a real possibility and felt a broader alert was necessary to ensure everyone in the wider area was aware and vigilant. Malia expressed that people had texted her saying they weren't even aware the children were missing until informed by others. Early in the ground search, there were small, fleeting moments of hope. Authorities reported finding a single boot print towards the end of the driveway. Daniel, in one account, mentioned 2 boot prints found about 10 meters from the home in the backyard. Whether these were from one or both children, or definitively linked, remained somewhat unclear in public statements. More unsettlingly, when police brought in scent dogs, the animals were reportedly able to track the children's scent, but the trail ended abruptly at the road. This particular detail raised immediate questions. Had the children reached the road? And if so, what happened next? Daniel himself would state that Lilly and Jack had never crossed the street by themselves, nor had they ever gone into the woods alone, deepening the mystery of how their scent could have led to the roadside. As the search for Lilly and Jack intensified, so did the scrutiny of every detail about the children and their home life. Lilly, 6, was described as having shoulder-length light brown hair with bangs and was possibly wearing a pink sweater, pink pants, and pink boots, carrying a white backpack with strawberries. Jack, 4, with short blondish hair, was last seen in a pull-up diaper and blue dinosaur boots, with Daniel later adding he was also wearing a brown shirt and brown pants. The clothes from the previous night, as neither parent had physically seen him on the morning of the disappearance. A significant point of contention and confusion arose around the children's verbal abilities and behavior, particularly in the context of their possible autism, as their mother Malia described it. Malia stated that while they had possible autism, it wasn't extreme, mainly causing issues with keeping up with peers at school. She, along with Daniel, repeatedly emphasized in interviews how friendly and chatty both children were. "They'll talk to anyone, they want to go with anyone," Daniel said, adding, "They're just looking to have as much fun as they can." Malia echoed this, saying, "They're so sweet, they talk to anyone, they'll talk your ear off." This portrayal supported their theory that the children might have willingly gone with a stranger. However, this depiction contrasted sharply with statements from others. The children's aunt, in a social media post, reportedly described both children as nonverbal. A teacher who had worked with Lilly and Jack offered a more nuanced view, stating they weren't shy but were minimally verbal. This discrepancy was significant. Were these outgoing children who might engage easily with an unfamiliar adult, or were they less communicative, perhaps making a quiet, unnoticed departure or abduction scenario seem more plausible from a different angle? Their bus driver also commented, noting Lilly often let out high-pitched squeals and was a bit of a drama queen, while Jack was very chatty and would throw his boots to get attention if ignored. Footage from Jack's second birthday party showed Lilly screaming excitedly, suggesting a tendency towards loud expressions. The question of their school attendance also became muddled. Daniel initially told investigators they hadn't gone to school on Thursday or Friday because Lilly had a cough. Later, he reportedly said they hadn't been to school all week. However, a bus driver and a teacher would later confirm seeing Lilly in school on Monday, May 28th. This inconsistency about when they were last verifiably seen by individuals outside the family home raised further questions about the precise timeline leading up to their disappearance. The physical layout of their home environment also presented a puzzle. Aerial shots revealed the backyard was fenced in. While described as not the most sturdy and possibly having gaps, the fence led many to wonder how 2 young children could have slipped out unnoticed. Adding to this, a trailer was situated on the property near the backyard, reportedly occupied by Daniel's mother and brother. This trailer was very close to the sliding door from which the children were said to have exited. If Daniel's relatives were home that morning, they too, apparently, heard and saw nothing unusual. A particularly strange incident occurred when searchers found a pink blanket about an hour after the search began. Given that Lilly's favorite color was pink, and she owned a pink blanket, it seemed like a promising find. However, when police showed it to Daniel, he asserted it did not belong to Lilly, despite no other children living nearby. Amidst these domestic puzzles, an external lead did surface: a suspicious black Honda CR-V. A witness reported seeing a man in his mid-50s, bald with a mustache, driving the vehicle away from the permanently closed Lansdowne Recreation Center, less than a mile from the Sullivan Martell home not long after the children went missing. This sighting was relayed to authorities, offering a tangible, albeit unconfirmed thread for the abduction theory the parents favored. Yet, as questions mounted about the events within and around the Garlock Road home, and with Daniel's prominent scratch on his face, which he explained as a result of searching through dense woods, the parents' unwavering insistence on abduction felt increasingly set against a backdrop of troubling inconsistencies. The strain of the ongoing search and the mounting public scrutiny appeared to take a toll on the family unit, leading to a significant development just a day after Lilly and Jack were reported missing. On Saturday, May 3rd, Malia Brooks Murray made the decision to leave the Garlock Road home. She took her 16-month-old daughter and went to stay with her own mother elsewhere in the province. The reasons cited for Malia's departure pointed to severe internal pressures. Reports suggested that her family was blaming Daniel Martel for the children's disappearance. This led to an argument involving multiple family members, culminating in Daniel's mother, who also resided on the property, allegedly asking Malia to leave. Soon after, it was confirmed by Malia's mother that she and Daniel had, in fact, broken up amidst the unfolding crisis. Daniel would later mention that Malia had blocked him on social media, though it was also stated she had simply deactivated her Facebook profile. With Malia largely removed from the immediate vicinity of the search in the home, Daniel became the more public face of the parental anguish and effort. He gave several interviews, and in one notable exchange, he spoke about his desire for a polygraph test. "That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for," he stated, explaining he had requested it early on. When asked why he felt it was necessary, Daniel replied, "I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone. Clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations and everything else." His insistence on the polygraph, while potentially a sign of wanting to prove his innocence, also highlighted the deep fractures and accusations that had apparently developed between him and Malia's family. As time went on with no trace of Lilly and Jack, online speculation intensified. Conflicting statements from their parents only fueled public curiosity. One widely discussed rumor involved a party allegedly held at the family's home on Garlock Road just days before the children went missing. A local resident claimed the house had a reputation as a drug house, and that they weren't even aware children lived there. According to this person, the driveway had been packed with cars late into the night, until at least 2 a.m., suggesting a large gathering. This led to theories that the children might have accidentally come into contact with drugs or another harmful substance. Meanwhile, others focused on Daniel Martel's behavior in interviews. Some noticed he appeared to use the past tense when speaking about the children, saying, for example, "Jack just absolutely loved bugs and dinosaurs." While it may have been a slip, it caught the attention of online sleuths. Speculation also centered around the children's behavior. Both were said to be possibly autistic and highly energetic. Some questioned whether their constant activity had placed strain on the adults in the household. Malia had previously mentioned that the noise they made would be missed. Their bus driver also commented that Lilly often squealed loudly, and that Jack had a habit of throwing his boots when he couldn't get attention. With Malia moving out, the couple's relationship ending, Daniel requesting a polygraph, and rumors about parties and the children's behavior swirling online, the story had clearly shifted. What began as a desperate search for 2 missing children was now entangled in suspicion and internal family conflict. Hopes for a simple explanation were quickly fading. On Wednesday, May 7th, 5 days after Lilly and Jack were last seen, the RCMP made a sobering announcement. The large-scale active search would be scaled back. According to officials, teams would now focus on researching specific areas that had already been combed. The reason? Survival was no longer considered likely. Given the children's ages, the dangerous terrain, and the poor weather conditions, authorities acknowledged that the chance of finding them alive had dropped significantly. The mission was no longer about rescue. It had shifted to recovery. Although the investigation remained active, the tone of the operation had changed. The goal now was to find the children, but the expectation was that they would not be found alive. Daniel Martel, in an interview around this time, still clung to hope, questioning why anything from Jack's pull-up to her backpack or any of her belongings at all, had been discovered if they were in the woods. Throughout the initial days of the search, and underscored at this press conference, was the consistent involvement of the RCMP's Major Crime Unit. While police officials often state that treating a missing person case as suspicious from the outset is standard procedure, especially with young children, the sustained presence of major crimes fueled public and media speculation that investigators were looking at more than just a case of children getting lost. When pressed during the May 7th conference to elaborate on whether they had detected any criminal activity, police remained cautious. When somebody goes missing, we will look at all the details. When it comes to a missing person, we have to automatically consider, are there people that have different charter implications? So we will automatically start to consider what evidence is pointing us towards a suspicious in nature. Again, I can't comment more than that, but every missing person case, we would approach it from the same process. Despite the official scaling back, the investigation was far from over. Investigators pledged to continue to investigate and chase leads for as long as, and as hard as we have to, appealing for anyone with information to come forward. But the announcement marked a somber turning point, officially acknowledging the likelihood of a tragic outcome and shifting the narrative from a desperate race against time to a methodical and likely prolonged search for answers and, heartbreakingly, for the children themselves, in whatever state they might be found. The hope of bringing Lilly and Jack home safe had diminished to a faint whisper. As the official search scaled back, the unresolved discrepancies and unanswered questions surrounding Lilly and Jack's disappearance loomed larger than ever, creating a vortex of uncertainty and suspicion. The core narrative provided by the parents was riddled with inconsistencies that investigators and a concerned public struggled to reconcile. One of the most glaring issues remained the timeline. When exactly did the children go missing? Daniel Martell initially spoke of a 20-minute window of silence around 8:30 a.m. on Friday, May 2nd, leading to their discovery as absent. Malia Brooks Murray's account suggested she woke to silence after drifting in and out of sleep. However, Belinda Gray, the children's paternal grandmother, indicated the 911 call was made around 9:40 a.m., while a police dispatch log reportedly noted the children went missing closer to 8:00 a.m. This variability was crucial, a difference of nearly 2 hours in when they might have vanished, versus when help was called, significantly altered the potential scope of their wanderings or the time frame for any other event. The parents' own accounts of their activities that morning also presented a moving target. Were they awake and feeding their baby, as one version suggested, or were they still in bed, semi-conscious of the children playing, as another indicated? Daniel's later statement that he'd asked Lilly and Jack to be quiet so the baby could sleep added another layer to this, subtly shifting the dynamic from passive awareness to active interaction, however brief. Then there was the matter of their last confirmed independent sighting. Daniel initially stated the children hadn't attended school on Thursday or Friday because Lilly had a cough. This was later revised, by some accounts, to them not having been in school all week. Yet a bus driver and a teacher confirmed Lilly, at least, was in school on Monday. If they hadn't been in school since Monday, as one interpretation of Daniel's shifting statements suggested, it raised the deeply disturbing possibility that the children might have been missing, or something amiss, for days before the Friday morning alarm was raised. This would drastically alter the survivability calculations and the entire complexion of the case. The physical evidence, or lack thereof, was equally perplexing. The scent dogs tracking the children to the road, where the trail vanished, could imply they were picked up in a vehicle, lending credence to an abduction theory. Yet, if they had simply wandered to the road, where did they go next? The single, or possibly two, boot prints found near the home offered little more than confirmation they had been outside. The denial by Daniel that a found pink blanket belonged to Lilly, despite her preference for the color and lack of other children nearby, remained an odd footnote. Community members and online observers grappled with the stark possibilities. Did Lilly and Jack, young and perhaps with developmental differences that affected their understanding of danger, simply wander into the dense, unforgiving Nova Scotia woods and succumb to the elements? This was the scenario the scaled-back search implicitly pointed towards. Or were they abducted, as their parents insisted, perhaps by the man in the black Honda CR-V, seen near the closed recreation center. This lead, while reported, seemed to have gained little public traction from investigators. The third, most sinister possibility, and one fueled by the inconsistencies in the family turmoil, was that something had happened to the children much closer to home, involving those tasked with their care. The heavy and continued involvement of the Major Crime Unit, while standard procedure, did little to quell these suspicions. The narrative was fractured, the timeline blurred. This sense of deepening shadows intensified on Friday, May 9th, exactly 1 week after the children were reported missing. Reports, though unconfirmed officially, indicated a heightened police presence back at Daniel Martel's Garlock Road residence. Rumors circulated that authorities were conducting a search underneath the home. While the outcome of this alleged search wasn't immediately clear, its very occurrence signaled that investigators were leaving no stone unturned, even those uncomfortably close to the family. The silence from the woods was profound, but the unanswered questions screamed for resolution. As days turned into weeks, the mystery of Lilly and Jack Sullivan's disappearance remained a raw, open wound for the Lansdowne Station community and for the wider audience captivated by their story. The investigation, though no longer a massive, active ground search, continued under the stewardship of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and its Major Crime Unit. The official status of Lilly and Jack, as per the latest information available from the provided sources, was still missing. No trace of them, alive or deceased, had been publicly announced. The profound and lasting impact on those most directly involved was undeniable. Malia Brooks Murray, the children's mother, had retreated from the Garlock Road home and largely from the public eye, presumably grappling with her loss and the breakdown of her relationship with Daniel Martel. Her early interviews conveyed a mother's desperate hope and pain, her desire for an Amber Alert, and her anguish at the thought of her children alone and vulnerable. The silence that followed her departure left her ongoing suffering largely to speculation. Daniel Martel, the children's stepfather, remained a more visible figure, at least in the initial aftermath. His interviews, his presence during the early searches, and his public call for a polygraph test painted a complex picture. He projected an image of a stepfather desperate to find the children and clear his name amidst family accusations and online suspicion. The scratch on his face, the varying accounts of the morning, and his past tense slips in interviews, however, continued to be subjects of intense debate among those following the case. The weight of the unresolved situation, regardless of its true nature, would undoubtedly cast a long shadow over his life. For investigators, the challenge was immense. They were confronted with a frustrating lack of concrete physical evidence directly linking anyone to a crime or definitively pointing to the children's whereabouts. The conflicting narratives from the primary witnesses, Malia and Daniel, created a quagmire of inconsistencies that made establishing a definitive sequence of events incredibly difficult. The scent dogs losing the trail at the roadside, the ambiguous boot prints, and the disputed pink blanket were tantalizing but ultimately inconclusive clues. The passage of time, a critical enemy in any missing persons case, further eroded the chances of finding fresh evidence or reliable eyewitness accounts. The alleged search underneath Daniel's home on May 9th, if it occurred as rumored, yielded no publicly disclosed breakthroughs. The case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan had become a chilling enigma. Will the truth about what happened to these two young children ever surface? Will their bodies, if the worst is to be assumed, ever be recovered from the silent, sprawling woods that seem to hold their secrets so tightly? These are the questions that continue to haunt not only their family and community, but also the investigators tasked with solving a case where every lead seemed to dissolve into the dense Nova Scotia undergrowth. The silence from the woods is in itself a screaming testament to a tragedy yet unexplained. For Lilly and Jack, and for all those touched by their story, the desperate need for answers, for closure, remains. Until then, their disappearance serves as a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly innocence can vanish, leaving behind only a void filled with questions and an unbearable, lingering sorrow.